Greetings from not so sunny Mexico. It's a little overcast today, but I'm thrilled to be here because it provides me with new challenges and new opportunities to see the world in new ways, which is my bag. I just watched a part of a neat episode of Trevor Noah's podcast, and he was hosting Jon Stewart, and they were talking about free speech and social media and ideology and conflict that's sort of built into that, or that's what it thrives on. And it's funny because I had that feeling the night before. And of course, the universe always aligns messages. They say signs follow, they don't precede. So I had the thought, and then there it popped up in my YouTube feed. But I had this feeling the night before because I had soaked my brain in a little bit too much TikTok and was feeling weird because my algorithm seems to focus on women's empowerment and aren't men gross and look what they do. But my historical data and experience with life does not actually support that. So I thought it was weird. Like, I was like, why does my algorithm tell me this? But like my lived experience with men, with very, very few exceptions, has been largely positive. It's just made me think. I was like, what's that all about? And then I was thinking and I said, well, it's designed to keep you engaged, and that rage and anger and rage baiting and conflict is the thing that keeps folks engaged the most. So it kind of makes sense. So somehow I dipped my toe in there. I was pretty angry probably a year and a half ago. So if it's still doing that, it's giving it to me. But I said, but that's not reality. Like, that is in a direct conflict with my own reality. So what the heck does that mean? What do I do with that? My experiences with men, especially friends or people I'm only lightly engaged with, I find them mostly cool. They're okay, caring, respectful, soulful, expressive. Um, and I'm certainly no man whisperer, but just see them as regular humans with guts and feelings and experiences. And that's how they experience me as well. Seem to, anyway. I only know what I know and only have experienced what I've experienced, and I give that credence here. But what I get, and I get what I expect from men. That's what I'll say. And I could go into a little bit of my more intimate experiences where if I'm more into the person, then I probably have thrown more roadblocks into the relationship, more higher standards, because I figure something that they're doing is going to affect my life experience. So then I have some need to like be involved in what their choices are. But that doesn't work. And I say, even in the most conflict ridden relationship I've ever had, which probably was my marriage, I would say that was the one that stands out. Um, it was never disrespectful, always respectful. And, he's very positive about me, and I like him too. He's okay. He's an okay dude. Um, Anyhow, my experiences with boys and men my whole life has been positive, and I don't need a market study or research to know that. And I will give myself credit that I think a good part of that is how I show up in those engagements. Like, I'm open to engage again, just like a regular person. And I talked about this in my book, How to Be Her Favorite Lover Ever, where one of the chapters is about, or one of the tips in the book is about just seeing a woman as a human being. If you want her to open up for you intimately, sexually, or whatever, treating her like an object only is going to get you so far. But anyway, I'll talk about that again sometime later, but I'm not going to talk about my book so much today. This observation that I personally get what I expect from men, and I just expect them to be regular people, is relevant to This Is Deeper, because as much as these social media algorithmic warriors, or quote unquote success stories, post something divisive, here we men and women are still on earth with one another. So people can be suggesting that women decenter men, and they certainly should, and ask themselves, what do I want? And is this good for me? And every moment of our days, you get that in my coaching, my private coaching, a little bit. And as much as women are pulling back from traditional relational structures and models, which again, in my view, ultimately is probably good, because the ones that were built on the backs of women and that also harm men by cutting off most of their feelings in exchange for their power doesn't work. So if those things are breaking apart or falling apart, great. But, and the reason I stress this is because of what I said earlier about having myself positive encounters with men. So I have maybe more faith than the average woman who may have felt more powerless against them. And then again, more rebellious or wanting to get away from it. Totally get it. Um, but also because they're here to stay. Like, men aren't going anywhere. We're here on earth together, and because we're here on earth together, like one of my friend creators said the other day, what are we going to do with men? And I said, I don't know, but we better figure it out, because we are all here together, and that is not going to change anytime soon, or ever, I think. To me, the folks that advise women to either get what they can from men, sort of a financial motive, or separate from them, still see women as a weaker sex. And to me, that's bullshit. Those approaches not only are disrespectful to women's true value and power, but are intellectually. Sorry, I've got dogs and cats fighting in the background. Hold on a second. All right, I'm back. The cats and dogs are still fighting, but we're just going to have to deal with it. I said that was bullshit when I said that separating from men are just trying to get what you can from them financially. The folks who promote those kinds of that kind of thinking still see women as a weaker sex, and that's bullshit. It bothers me. These approaches not only are disrespectful to women's true value and power, but are intellectually lazy, spiritually misaligned, and lack even the fundamentals or basics of imagination. When these things rely on imagination, or change really relies on imagination, and is most critical to create what is wanted. So, partially the work of both genders, women in particular, I guess I'm thinking about now, because I generally think about women more than men, is to know what we want, know what we would like, what would be the ideal. And there's none of that discussion among these social media influencers that sow divisiveness. And I guess I can't talk about the male social media influencers who are also doing the same and worse on their end, because these men with podcasts and microphones, some of them must be stopped, because it's ridiculous, some of the stuff they're saying. Anyway, neither side is doing it right, in my opinion. And it doesn't take into account the fact that we live here on earth and that we are human beings, and that's the fundamental nature of things. It doesn't look at any critical structures or backgrounds. There's some interrogation of historical background, I think, especially among the female influencers. The men seem to be just looking back nostalgically when they could just dominate women willy nilly. But the women are saying, well, there's more to it than that that has led us to where we are today. I get that. This is deeper as a foothold to shake you out of any algorithmic driven delusion or point of view. It forces you into your body and into engagement with the now. It's about what we're doing right now and where we're going forward. You get to practice this, you get to engage in a new way using human technology, quote unquote, to bring yourself to a place where human experiences are possible. And, that's my motivation for pursuing any of the work that I've done in my life, but pursuing and creating This Is Deeper in particular has to do with humans connecting with one another. And I pose that sort of in contrast to what the algorithmic driven reality is doing, which is pushing us further and further apart because there's more money to be made in having us separate. I think you could see the same thing 50 years ago when advertising was really kicking in. The way that advertisers and companies made money was making us feel bad about ourselves. And if you bought this product, owned this thing, had this house, bought this pair of shoes, wore this lipstick, ate this food, then your life would be happier. But we found that that is not the case, and that there's nothing necessarily wrong with us. I'd say in this case, context, in either side of that, or wherever you fall in the gender spectrum, there's nothing inherently wrong, but the possibility for us to connect is in direct conflict with um, the economy making money. It doesn't make money when you're happy and content. It doesn't make money when you're getting along. I mean, I guess I make money if I get you to a place where you get along, but I prefer to make my money on that end of things as opposed to just pushing people further apart, because the whole point of us being here, um, having this human experience, really is to be connected to each other and to be solidly situated and self expressed in our own shoes. So, yeah, that's part of what This Is Deeper does. I work with couples. My first iteration for this, for the retreat in September, September 6th and 7th in the New York area, is for couples because that was the first thing I thought of that made sense. But, my philosophy for This Is Deeper, the formulation really has to do with getting into our bodies, um, and we do that with non-sexual touch and consent and boundary setting and all that jazz, to get us to a place where we're grounded in our bodies, first of all, turning down the noise of the world around us, putting the phones away and all that stuff, to set ourselves where we are and in physically in our bodies. Because again, this is where we live as humans on Earth. And I know um, it sets you up to start to be in a place where human experiences are possible. And those are being in your body, connecting to others, and being self expressed. Those are the three chunks that we work on, and This Is Deeper. We're going to work with couples. I'm thinking about new ways to do it with individuals or friendships or in families, all kinds of ways that we can get at this. And we will, one step at a time. This Is Deeper reflects all of that I've learned over the course of my 50 plus years of living about being deeply human. And I think we're ready for it. I think we're smart enough and intelligent enough to get this. And I know that if you're meant to get it, you will. And I think we're ready for a new era in relationships. And that's in all kinds of relationships. And that's where This Is Deeper applies. And it begins by getting to a safe space. And that's what I provide. And the containers I create, social containers I create for This Is Deeper, you're going to be safe there. We learn and experience how to get connected to one another. We learn how to communicate both verbally and physically. And we learn how to express from that centered place of ourselves that's not throwing up defenses, nor does it see its only way of expressing itself as through domination of other people, because all those things are wrong. But let me tell you, it's not a magic wand, but we can think of it more as a portal, a door to something new. that gives you, me, us, they, them, all of us who participate, your partner, you, your friend, your family, however those new offers and opportunities for you to work with me come up, to get access to yourself and to your relationships in new ways. My dad once told me, and he only needed to tell me once because he lived it, that there's more than enough love for everybody. And there is. So I'm going to end on that note. If you want more information about the upcoming immersion experience, 2 days in September in New York with me, right now for the next 12 days, it's still on sale for early bird. So you can save about $1,200 by enrolling early, which is cool. And I'm happy to do that. I'll put the link to the website in the description, and you can click there to learn more about the program and sign up for the newsletter and buy your ticket. And even if you need to have a quick conversation with me, that link to my calendar is also there. All is well. Don't forget, there's enough for you.